InvestorIdeas.com podcast.
Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of InvestorIdeas.com podcasts. In today's podcast, going to be looking at a few public company announcements from CURLF Holdings Incorporated, trading on the CSE as CURA and the OTCQX as CURLF. Also looking at Hollister Biosciences Incorporated, trading on the CSE as HOLL and the OTC as HSTRF. Myconic Capital Corporation, formerly known as Olurite Investments Incorporated, trading on the CSE as MEDI and BDSA Analytics. First, starting with CURLF Holdings Incorporated, who announced a new CURLF branding for the company's recently acquired retail locations and imminent openings of its 10th store in Illinois. So additionally, CURLF has contributed $950,000 to impact social equity with 6 strategic partnerships focused on education and job training in the greater Chicagoland community as part of its corporate social responsibility rooted in good initiative, as well as per the Illinois social equity provisions in adult use regulations. So CURLF successfully closed its acquisition of Grassroots on July 23rd of 2020, and it has obtained final regulatory approval from the state of Illinois for the transfer of 9 greenhouse and Windy City cannabis retail licenses. So in accordance with the state guidelines, CURLF has begun rebranding of Windy City cannabis retail locations in Worth, Justice, and on Weed Street in Chicago. In addition to the greenhouse dispensaries located in Deerfield, Mokonaw, Skokie, Northbrook, Melrose, and Morris. At one of the 9 rebranded Illinois retail locations, CURLF's signature teal logo will be prominently displayed as part of the new interior design and will feature hyper-local cityscape murals that capture each store's unique location, further enhancing the experience and connection to the community. And later this month, CURLF will be hosting a grand opening of its brand new 4,700 square foot Westmont store located at East 11 Ogden Avenue in Westmont, Illinois. And this is its 10th retail location in the state, and it's 103rd nationwide. And in addition to the ribbon-cutting event to mark the occasion, all customers will receive 15% off purchases made on the first visit to any of the new CURLF stores, and all rebranded stores will host a CURLF Day on April 8th. So this follows really quickly, just going into CURLF's expansion. Obviously now they have sort of finalized everything regulatory-wise with their acquisition of Grassroots, so they can actually start using those rebranded locations. So hopefully in the next month or so, they'll start to have those opening, obviously with the grand opening expected this month, and on April 8th doing their sort of brand-wide CURLF Day. And this kind of follows on the heels that I talked about recently of their launch of Select Squeeze, which was a fast-acting THC-infused beverage enhancer featuring nano-emulsification technology. And this was actually one of the first cannabis products with mass availability as it became accessible to a total addressable population of 94 million, which was, again, thanks to sort of the CURLF footprint. So basically, I would expect to continue to see CURLF expanding its multi-state operations. Again, they did have a really successful launch of that Select Squeeze brand. Most of the CURLF brands that have been launching because of their massive retail footprint that they have right now as a multi-state operator have been seen quite well, and they have been focusing on their in-house brands, which have been doing quite successful. And I would definitely pay attention to them continuing expansions in Illinois as well as a few other states that they're in. Moving on to Hollister Biosciences Incorporated, who has partnered with one of California's leading distributors, Cannabis, as demand for Hollister products continues to build. This new exclusive partnership will help streamline sales, grow retail opportunities, and reduce wholesale delivery times on all orders. So Cannabis supports California's cannabis market and its wholesale distribution services, supplying more than 99% of California's dispensaries with a diverse selection of innovative products. And Cannabis works directly with brands to ensure timely fulfillment and provides actionable sales data and insights to help brands scale and grow. So this partnership comes at a time when Hollister's portfolio of products continues to gain brand awareness. So Hashbone, hash-infused pre-roll, one of the company's recent launches, as well as Venom Extracts, which is soon coming to the California market. And this month, Hollister will also introduce Easy Riders pre-rolls to the collectible tin. The first product's from its collaboration with the iconic Motorcycle Lifestyle magazine, and it also has a product collaboration with Tommy Chong, which was actually what we had our interview with him about back in a couple months ago. So Hollister Biosciences, now that they're working with Cannabis, interesting enough, you're starting to see that even more advanced states and really advanced markets like California are now starting to look somewhat at Canadian provincial models as far as having just a large scale retail infrastructure that all goes through one hub. Cannabis now pretty much does deal with the vast majority of the supply chain when you're looking at California dispensaries and California brands. And more so, we're starting to see that this is starting to become the reality in most states and most really cannabis markets right now, as you're starting to see a little bit more of a chokehold being created as far as overall supply chains. But with that, you're also seeing a lot of improvements as far as efficiencies, overall product quality, packaging consistency, and also keeping the supply active. Big issue for a lot of these early dispensaries and early markets as they start forming is keeping the supply chain constant and usually not being able to keep up with demand. So obviously now with Hollister Biosciences working with Cannabis, I would expect their California brands to be doing even better and them to be excelling in that market. And this will be something to pay attention to for any brands that are launching into California from now on, is if they're going to be partnering with Cannabis, and also in other states what is becoming a similar version of a Cannabis in its own right. Looking next at Mycana Capital Corporation, who announced in pursuit to the establishment of an investment portfolio of leading ketamine treatment centers for depression and chronic neuropathic pain, the company has acquired the rights for a letter of intent providing for the acquisition of all the issued and outstanding shares of New York Ketamine Medical Practice PLLC, which is a leading mental health and pain clinic based in New York, New York. Now, New York Ketamine Infusions was founded in 2012 by Dr. Glenn Z. Brooks, who was among the first physicians in the U.S. using his innovative treatment to successfully care for patients suffering from treatment-resistant depression, PTSD, mood disorders, and chronic neuropathic pain. Building on over 2 decades of clinical research at major institutions like Yale and the National Institute of Mental Health, Dr. Brooks was at the forefront of introducing this innovative treatment to patients in need, and Dr. Brooks is a board-certified anesthesiologist, having completed his training at Harvard's Brigham and Women's Hospital as he is taught at Yale University School of Medicine. Now, as of 2021, Dr. Brooks has treated over 4,000 patients with 50,000 ketamine infusions in his New York City office alone, representing the largest single office clinical experience in the world. So, unlike other depression medications that can take weeks or months to take effect, relief from ketamine infusions can often be experienced by patients within hours, making it especially useful for suicide ideation. So low doses of ketamine are generally administered through a series of 6 infusions over a 2-week period, often followed by ongoing maintenance sessions on an as-needed basis. In otherwise treatment-resistant depression patients, numerous studies have shown that intravenous ketamine therapy has an overall success rate of 70%. So based on the success of its New York City clinic, New York Ketamine Infusions has opened an additional clinic in Long Island. And Dr. Brooks also continues to act as a consultant for privately owned practices in Albany as well as Madrid, Spain. And he has been interviewed and quoted in numerous publications, including the New York Times, and was featured in Bloomberg Business Week. So obviously for Mycana Capital Corporation, having Dr. Brooks as a name associated with that and focusing on ketamine therapy specifically is going to do very well for them. Again, there are a series of considerations that need to go through before the completion of that transaction goes through. That being said, if you haven't been paying attention to what's going on with a lot of the different ketamine therapies, it's definitely becoming the sort of other big aggressive dominant player when you're looking at psychedelics that are being pushed through as far as both clinical trials as well as special exemptions. Both ketamine and psilocybin tend to be the main ones right now that everyone's focusing on. And ketamine definitely does seem to have a bit of an advantage when you're looking at strictly sort of the pharmaceutical side of treatment and really traditional medicine's sort of way of dealing with both psychiatric and mental stress. So I do think that you're going to see ketamine become more and more of a dominant player in the psychedelic space, probably more so than psilocybin. Again, when you're looking at psilocybin, not as much ability to sort of curate it in the same clinical sense as there is with ketamine. And again, there is a little bit more inconsistency just based off the strains. So I would definitely pay attention to Myconic Capital with this acquisition, and definitely pay attention to, again, looking at the overall model of how a ketamine clinic can run and should be run in the future. Looking at Dr. Glenn Brooks' model there, I think will probably be replicated just based off their success so far. Lastly today, looking at BDSA Analytics, who announced the availability of its new basket analytics solution, which is the most in-depth solution of its kind in the cannabis industry. BDSA Basket Analytics is now available on BDSA's Green Edge platform. So retailers can now maximize basket sizes and in-store experiences via unique and strategic store layouts and planograms, positioning products most likely to be purchased together on shelves to encourage cross-sell and upsell opportunities, and further, retailers can unpack untapped promotional programs, educate their bud tenders to increase basket size, and generate more consumer trips to the stores and higher basket sizes when in the store. So BDSA can now put specifics around how cross-brand and cross-category consumption translates to volume. Baskets containing concentrates in Colorado, for example, are among the biggest in dollar size, while concentrates tend to have a higher retail price. 20% of the times, these shoppers are also buying flower, and 14% of the time, they are also buying edibles. So BDSA launched their new basket analytics. I do expect the vast majority of retailers will be using this, or at least utilizing something like this. Again, when we're looking at the overall retail models, you're seeing a push towards more technology-driven retail. Again, especially with COVID-19 measures, it just does seem to be that this sort of idealistic version of things where you're going to have bud tenders really providing this tailored experience is just not really going to be the reality of the average cannabis retail experience. It is going to be digitally driven, and because it's all going to be digitally driven, and because most stores are going to be using either iPads or touchscreens or purchasing through your phone, etc., these types of basket analytics are going to become much more the game changers for those companies. And again, we've seen this in most of the cannabis markets today already start to play out, that there are a bunch of companies who have already quickly adapted to using sort of the best technology that's available. And these companies are starting to jump ahead in the retail sectors that they're in. And again, a lot of these companies that are still trying to create this more intimate, wine tasting-esque experience, the industry is still not going to be set up for that anytime soon. And I do think that eventually, even if there is going to be that type of experience, it will have to be in a very different type of overall model, where it will be something more akin to an actual wine tasting, where you can actually go to a production facility and potentially have a more in-depth interaction there. But I think just for your bare bones retail, adapting to technology just seems to be the way to go, and adapting to especially the easiest version of sort of automated retail is going to become essential. And again, companies like BDSA and their analytics solutions are going to become much more the deciding factors, or sort of the extra leverage that these companies will need to get ahead of some of their competitors in some of those areas where competition's a little more fierce. That's all for today's podcast. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. That's all for today's podcast. Podcast is now a certified word trademark on the blockchain through Cognate Incorporated CM certification. InvestorIdeas.com podcasts are also available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and TuneIn. If you'd like to be a guest or sponsor of this podcast, please contact InvestorIdeas.com. Investor Ideas reminds all listeners to read our disclaimers and disclosures on the InvestorIdeas.com website, and this podcast is not an endorsement to buy products or services or securities. Investors are reminded that all investments involve risk and possible loss of investment. Investor Ideas does not condone the use of cannabis except where permissible by law. Our site does not possess, distribute, or sell cannabis products.